Okay, boys, we got more games since opening night. I'm going to try to get to a decent amount. Look, it's a long season. Every team is going to get their time. And let's start with the Bucks. And, at the beginning of the game against the Sixers, we did see some Giannis screening for Middleton, Giannis screening for Dame. We saw, Dame one pass away, on the opposite wing when Giannis screened for Middleton. We did see some Giannis-Dame pick and roll, which, of course, was what we all immediately went to when the trade went down. And, you saw it on, the first play. It was 2 to the ball on Dame, Giannis middle of the floor with Embiid helping off of Brook Lopez, basically just waiting for him at the rim, and Giannis was able to score around Embiid one time, but Philly did just basically have Embiid plant himself in the paint to wait for Giannis on those, and he was able to get some misses out of Giannis in that regard. But of course, that means Brook Lopez is open, and that's just going to be the constant thing of the Dame-Giannis pick and roll. Somebody's going to be open, man. It's just that obviously teams will bet on we can close out to shooters and all that as opposed to, Giannis getting what he wants at the basket. And of course, if you're in drop, then that opens up the Dame pull-up. Now, as far as going with Malik Beasley as the fifth starter, if they can hold up defensively and then Beasley is the fifth guy, there's just so much shooting on the court, But we'll see between that, Crowder, Pat Connaughton. Speaking of Crowder, he and Brook Lopez set some double screens for Dame very high up in the half court and everything, which allows Dame to get downhill. And while we did have great specific plays, and of course you had Dame drawing fouls and getting 3 or 4 point plays because this is what he does, and the dagger foul 3-point play he had on Oubre, that started from Giannis setting a screen for him, and I think Brook was at the top of the key too. But I do think there were still some stretches where you could tell Giannis didn't totally know what to do every single possession if he wasn't screening on the ball, basically. And they'll figure that stuff out. I think that's fine for game one. And even so, Giannis still had, 20-some points or whatever. As far as Philly, Oubre was great. We love that for him. But look, obviously we don't know what the hell is going to happen with the James Harden situation. So until then, I think what we have to look at is the connectivity between Maxey and Embiid. Because individually, they're both great, of course. I do think later on in the game, they were able to get into more empty corner, Maxey, Embiid, handoff actions, or a little more chemistry on pick and pops, or even Maxey coming around the screen and then Embiid flowing into that pull up that it felt like through parts of last season he basically never missed off of the Harden screens, right? We had a Maxey catch and shoot off of an Embiid post up because the Bucks were doubling pretty aggressively, and that is a slightly new look for them, is being a little more aggressive, and we'll see the balancing act with the Bucks defense all year, going from the safe, effective defense with Budenholzer to the not completely overhauling things, but definitely a little more aggressive at times under Griffin. Joel did have 7 turnovers, so okay. Not Embiid's best game. They were in it anyway, and okay. Now we go to the Celtics and the Knicks, and Porzingis, what did he have, 30 points or whatever? And obviously the pick and pops off of Tatum, off of Jalen, off of whoever are fantastic. But I think my biggest thing with Porzingis was the 10 free throw attempts. And I will admit, as a Celtics fan, there were a couple of calls in favor of the Celtics where I was like, ooh, I don't know about that one. But for Porzingis specifically, it was the catch and drives, It's the fact that he can screen for basically anybody on the team who can dribble the ball. And then it can be, you take Hartenstein off the dribble. You take Mitchell Robinson into an ISO on the right wing area, when Tatum throws it to you. Or one where he's sealing Quentin Grimes underneath the basket on a transition play, and then, he ends up falling down. And that was one of the calls where I was like, I don't know, but he got a call. There you go, right? And I do think the signs of this were there last season with the Wizards, because he had more shots around the rim compared to mid-rangers. He's still going to get his Porzingis mid-range attempts on, don't get me wrong, but yeah, so we'll see if he keeps it up. As far as the Celtics defense, it was a good amount of drop defense with Porzingis just dropping back on screens, protecting the basket, and I do think that, the Celtics defensive rating in the game overall was great, so maybe I just shouldn't care at all. While I did think there were some fantastic times of Porzingis just protecting the rim basically against, Brunson or RJ, even if RJ had a good game overall, there were also a few times where I feel like the Celtics didn't totally know what to do with their help defense, and you had Jalen helping a little too aggressively, and then it's oh crap, it's now, I think Quentin Grimes got a 3 off of that or whatever. There were a couple times where they weren't able to get around the screen on Quickly, who was able to kill him with some pull-ups. One time Brunson got pretty open because I think Tatum didn't do the best job working around the drop, but Brunson missed the 3. The point I'm getting at is, while the defense was really good overall, I do think the slightly less switching, specifically from the bigs, is still going to be an adjustment thing for the Celtics, even if, of course, 1 through 4, they're still going to be switchy. And, they had Drew guarding Julius Randle for a lot of this game, so I think that just shows that Missoula's kind of thinking of that when it comes to Drew, if you can just kind of put him anywhere on defense. As far as Tatum, he was screening on the ball for Derek White. We had some of the guards screening for Tatum. Besides that, it's Tatum being Tatum, man. The drives were great. The shot making was great. Tatum's great. So yeah, and shout out to Quickly. To quote CP the Franchise, who is a fantastic Knicks content creator on YouTube, also known as Knicks Fan TV. Quickly's nickname this year is Get Money. Now let's go on to Spurs Mavs. So we did see a whole bunch of dudes screening for Kyrie or Luka. We saw a little bit of Kyrie screening for Luka, specifically as like the second screener on plays. We did see like Tim Hardaway, Josh Green, Grant Williams, Kleba, just any one on the team was what it felt like screening for either one of those guys, which is good. You know, extra variety in the offense, why not? Of course, we saw Derek Lively screening for them, and we saw Lively lobs, and I mean, we all understood that Lively is the type of center that this team needs. It was just a question of if he's ready right away, because a lob threat with Kyrie and Luka, I mean, we've all been saying, you know, that they need that. I do think that in the extremely small sample size of 6 minutes, the lineup of Kyrie, Luka, Grant Williams, Josh Green, and Derek Lively is like very encouraging to me, because I think that could be, again, it's been one game with Lively. I don't want us to take the expectations through the roof here, but if he's that dude right away, then that can be the best combination to me of like defenders around those two who can still do something on offense. Like Josh Green, you know, the three ball has not been on super high volume throughout his career, but the percentages have been good. Grant was already awesome from three in the first game. Lively, the lob threat, the whole thing, right? But until then, you might get some more Derek Jones Jr., and of course Hardaway's going to get these shots up no matter what. Let's talk about the Spurs. So for Wemby specifically, I do plan on doing like a deep dive on him, and you know, we'll do the draft class stuff as the year goes on. He made some threes, he got a lob dunk, and his general existence is always effective on defense. He blocked Kyrie Irving's shot. We all know this. But it's been a lot of Wemby, so let's talk about some of the other Spurs. I think Devin Vassell, given the extra attention that Wemby is going to have on this team now, I think Vassell is soon going to get recognized as a mid-range god. He went 5 for 7 for mid-range in this game. He was very good on like pull-up twos last season, and I mean, it's a mix of things. It's double screens up top. It's, you know, to where he can like flow into a little hop step. It's, you know, just wing pick and rolls with like Zach Collins, where he's just going into the pull-up from like 17 feet. You've got these handoff actions where he's flowing into them at what feels like not a sprint, but he's certainly moving. And then he's like taking this fadeaway deep two over Luka that just drops right in. He looks comfortable the whole time. Let's talk about the Spurs point guard situation. It's pretty much between Trey Jones and Sohan. They've been starting Sohan, and I mean, they both actually made threes in this game. So, okay, that's intriguing. But, yeah, look, obviously Sohan is more of like a point forward who is being put in a point guard role because they're not loaded at that position. I think it's fine. Like, he's a smart passer. He can get downhill if he's got the opportunity. Defensively, of course, he's versatile as all hell, and him and Wemby out there together, I would love to see what the defensive rating of those two and Zach Collins, like those three on the court together long term, like it's probably going to be a very good number. And typically it's Sohan brings the ball up, he kicks it off to, you know, Vassell or Keldon or whatever, and then he just kind of goes and flows into the offense. Like, I think that's fine given their choices at that position. And then Trey Jones comes in and he's just super fundamentally sound, you know, a good assist to turnover guy, the whole thing. Let's bounce around for a bit on the things that I have seen. I do need to catch up on like the Raptors T-Wolves game, for example. I know Edwards and Cat missed a million shots, but if we can go to the Hawks and the Hornets, because I was fixated on this game. So Brandon Miller, I think similar to the preseason, he's flowing off of the ball with Rozier and LaMelo, right? He did have like one time where he ran like a ghost screen or a pick and pop with Rozier. So, okay, cool, finding ways to get himself involved there. He did have a couple of really nice reads off of screens when he had the opportunity, but shots didn't go in. Nick Richards drops the ball, whatever. He did have one time where he tried to kind of cook and he turned the ball over. And okay, you know, rookies are going to do those sorts of things. He also had one like fantastic catch and step back thing. He had 13 overall. Like, I think Brandon Miller fits in well with the Hornets. It's just, if you were looking for the second overall pick to go cook mode right away, it's probably not going to happen, at least not right now. But I think 13 points a game, like, yeah, that's probably like a normal number you can see for Miller in this spot. Loved that he was willing to get some cutting on, and he was stepping into those three-pointers in the fourth quarter with confidence, man. Mark Williams, he's just super solid when defending screens, man. He's just in the right spot, which I know sounds super basic, but like, there's bigs who you wait years to see if they can be in the right spot. You know, it was typically some drop, but I think there were like a couple plays where he was higher up on screens, and yeah, like Trey and DeJounte certainly helped him out by missing just a lot of pull-ups in this game. And sure, if you were to go down every single made basket the Hawks had, like, yeah, there were a couple when Mark Williams was around the basket, but the still not super large, but something sample size continues to say when Mark Williams is on the court, Hornets, good team. So Jalen Johnson, he seems like he's going to be a Swiss Army knife. A couple plays where he like would slip screen for Trey and get something. Also, by the way, PJ Washington screening for LaMelo was very effective. Floater god after one game, PJ Washington. Anyway, for Jalen, looked great in transition with or without the ball. Had a catch and shoot three. We love that for him. The most intriguing thing to me were his drives off the catch. He had like one super physical one. I want to say it was PJ Washington. I could be wrong there. He had another one where he had to bust out like a crossover after catching it, and then he was taking it to the basket. Like, it was a very good game one for Jalen Johnson, who Hawks fans, even last year, were like, can we please get this guy in? And, John Collins is in Utah now, that whole thing. As far as the Quinn Snyder Hawks changes, whatever. So defensively, it felt like Capella and Okongwu were higher up on screens, that, at least in that first game, that I would have expected. We'll just see. They had rotations behind him. We'll see if it's something they stick to like that. As far as on offense, like, yeah, they're certainly trying more times of like Trey or DeJounte giving the ball up and then perhaps like flowing into something off ball, and then it leads to a DHO, or Capella might have it and then throw it to one of them and immediately screen, which is slightly different than them just having him screen for him like at the top of the key at the beginning of a possession, even if that's still going to happen as well. A couple times where like DeAndre Hunter is the second screener for either one of them. Like, Quinn Snyder's trying some things, and we'll just see if we'll just see. Let's go to Cade and his 30 points and no free throws. And I mean, he had some physical drives on like Jimmy and Hero that I thought definitely could have been fouls. A lot of jump shots for Cade in this one. The pull-up two, which is something that he has not been shy to attempt so far in his career. The three as well. I mean, the biggest takeaway for me is like, yeah, Cade is super crafty around screens. And sure, if you were to look at every single pick and roll that Cade has run in his career so far, you are definitely going to find some times where I feel like he tries maybe a little too hard to get the defender on his back. He waits a second longer than he needs to. But you've also got a lot of games like this one where he's just controlling the game at his pace, and he's getting into the pull-up or, whatever the play needs to be around the screen, And I think with a healthy season, and now with like the team around him that makes sense between Duran, who can screen and roll, and Bogdanovich as the shooter, Ivy as the second ball handler who can attack off the catch. And I mean, his three ball wasn't horrible his first year. Like, yeah, I think Cade's going to be going off this year. Bogdanovich not being there was definitely felt for the Pistons spacing. And also, I really want to just see more of Cade and Jalen Duran just screens and all that with each other. Then you had Asar with the 5 blocks. Miami won the game, by the way, so shout out to Miami. But Asar with 5 blocks, and I think the one that was craziest to me was the one when he guarded Bam in the post, and also his screen navigation on the Hero block was really good as well. And also plays that didn't result in blocks, where he was just like getting around screens, guarding Jimmy really well. Like, I have been very intrigued. I mean, more so just flat out like, yeah, Asar is good. Now, I understand that the scoring and the shooting, we'll see, but his connectivity on offense and what he already has been showing defensively this preseason, I'm an Asar guy. I also think the Pistons, between getting Bogdanovich back, potentially playing Joe Harris a little more, even if, Harris is not a perfect player, we'll see. They got to stretch the floor out. And some of that being where Isaiah Stewart can get to as a shooter and all that. I do want to talk about Rockets Magic a little bit. So I don't want to go panic mode on Houston just yet, but they did score 86 points after, a lot of things happened this offseason. I do think we saw some semblance of like the Fred Şengün 2-man game where like Şengün screen, get it at the free throw line, and then into like these Dirk-esque like turnarounds or fadeaways or making the next play off of the screen, because of course Şengün's great, but Fred, he was willing to take the pull-ups off of those screens, which, like, yes, we should not be surprised. However, Jalen Green had some reckless drives against traffic for Orlando. I mean, Orlando's also just, like, kind of huge, especially in the minutes where, like, Jonathan Isaac is out there. Amen lost his dribble a few times. Jabari missed what felt like anything he tried. It was not great. We're going to give the Rockets, like, 5 games, okay? Game 1, it counts, but we'll let it be. Max Strus was more than just a go stand in the corner guy. I mean, for the Cavs, I mean, yeah, he was grabbing rebounds like crazy, but also like, he was involved in DHOs and like screenplays. Like, he wasn't just, go stand there. Like, we want this guy involved in the offense, so that's cool. Ben was pushing it in transition. That's a good sign. The Cam Thomas avalanche, it's a thing. And for what it's worth, I did think a few of his buckets were more in the flow of things, like Ben, flipping it to him and then screening for him, as opposed to just, it's the Cam Thomas show, everybody get out of the way. Shout out to Donovan for the game winner. And also, I have not seen this game yet, so I'm not going to give you any actual take on it, but I did see the stat line, and DeAndre Ayton, we're going to need some more points, man. That's all I got for you before I actually look at it. And also, Scoot did not set the world on fire in Game 1.